Hey, welcome back. If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance you've noticed something changing with your eyes. Maybe it's the dryness that hits every evening. Maybe it's the blur that wasn't there 5 years ago. Maybe you're waking up at 3 in the morning and your eyes feel like sandpaper. Or maybe your doctor just quietly mentioned something about macular degeneration, elevated eye pressure, or early signs of cataracts, and you nodded along in the office but came home and typed something into Google at midnight. Whatever brought you here, I want you to know you're not overreacting. What you're feeling is real. And more importantly, what you do tonight, literally tonight before you go to sleep, can start making a difference. I'm Dr. Andrew Collins, and today we're talking about the single best drink you can have before bed specifically for your eye health. Not in a clickbait way. Not, drink this one thing and your vision will be restored by Tuesday. I mean this eye. In the very real, evidence-based, practical way, the kind of conversation I try to have with my patients every single day. Now, before I get into the drink itself, I want to give you some context because this matters. A lot of people think eye problems are just about your eyes. They're not. Your eyes are windows, and I mean that medically, not poetically. What happens in your blood vessels, your liver, your kidneys, your gut, it all shows up in your eyes. The eyes are one of the first places we see the effects of systemic inflammation, poor circulation, oxidative stress, and nutritional deficiency. So when I talk about something you drink before bed, I'm not talking about a magic potion. I'm talking about something that addresses the root, causes the deep downstream problems that are quietly degrading your vision over time. And here's where the men's health piece becomes really important. Because if you are a man over 50, your eyes are under a level of pressure that most people simply aren't told about. Not just from screen time or age though, those matter, but from something much more fundamental happening inside your body. After 50, most men experience a measurable decline in circulation. The tiny capillaries, and I mean extremely tiny, we're talking microscopic, the ones that feed your optic nerve, your macula, the retina at the back of your eye, those capillaries start to lose efficiency. Blood flows through them more slowly. Nutrients arrive in smaller amounts. Waste products don't clear as cleanly as they used to. And your eyes, which are extraordinarily demanding organs in terms of blood flow and oxygen, start to show the strain. At the same time, something else is happening. Oxidative stress, the cellular equivalent of rust, begins to accumulate in the tissues of the eye faster than your body can neutralize it. This is one of the primary drivers behind age-related macular degeneration, which is the leading cause of vision loss in people over 50 worldwide. It's behind the development of cataracts. It's behind the slow thickening of the lens that makes reading glasses suddenly feel like a necessity rather than an option. And here's what makes it especially frustrating: this damage is largely silent. You don't feel it happening. There's no alarm. Your vision doesn't suddenly drop off a cliff. It drifts slowly. So slowly that most men don't notice until the damage is already significant. That's why tonight matters. What you do in those quiet hours before sleep, what you put into your body, how your body recovers while you're unconscious, that's when the repair work either happens or it doesn't. So let's talk about what actually helps. Now, I want to be straightforward with you, the way I try to be with every patient who sits across from me. There is no shortage of people online selling supplements, powders, drops, and miracle formulas that promise to restore your vision overnight. I'm not doing that today. What I'm sharing with you is grounded in peer-reviewed research, in clinical observation, and in the kind of nutritional medicine that is slowly but surely making its way into mainstream eye care, even if it hasn't fully arrived yet in every doctor's office. So what is this drink? Warm turmeric milk, sometimes called golden milk. And before you click away thinking this is some trendy wellness fad, stay with me for just a moment, because the science behind this specific combination of ingredients and the specific time you drink it is genuinely impressive. Let's break it down ingredient by ingredient, because each one is doing something distinct for your eyes. The foundation is milk, and if you're dairy-free, warm oat milk or almond milk works just as well, and I'll explain why in a second. Milk contains tryptophan, which your body converts into serotonin and then into melatonin. Now, most people think of melatonin purely as a sleep hormone, and yes, it does regulate sleep. But what's less talked about is that melatonin is also one of the most potent antioxidants your body produces. And it doesn't just circulate generally. Research has shown that the eye actually produces its own melatonin locally in the retinal cells. It uses melatonin as a frontline defense against oxidative damage during the night. So when you support melatonin production before bed, you are directly supporting the eye's own internal repair system. That alone makes warm milk at night a reasonable choice for eye health. But then we add turmeric, and this is where things get really interesting. Turmeric contains a compound called curcumin. You've probably heard of it. But here's what most people don't realize: curcumin has been studied specifically in the context of ocular disease, and the results are striking. Studies published in journals including Investigative Ophthalmology and Visual Science have shown that curcumin helps reduce inflammation in retinal cells, protects against the kind of oxidative stress that drives macular degeneration, and may even help clear the toxic protein deposits called drusen that accumulate in the eyes of people with early AMD. There's also strong evidence that curcumin supports healthy intraocular pressure, which is directly relevant to glaucoma risk. And for men over 50, whose baseline inflammation tends to be chronically elevated, often without any obvious symptoms, the anti-inflammatory effect of curcumin taken consistently, especially at night when the body is in repair mode, is genuinely meaningful. Now here's the critical detail that most people miss. Curcumin on its own is poorly absorbed by the body. It passes through your digestive system, and very little of it actually makes it into your bloodstream. So the golden milk recipe that actually works is not just turmeric in warm milk. You need 2 additional ingredients to make it effective. The first is black pepper. Even a tiny pinch, a 1/4 teaspoon, contains a compound called piperine, which increases the bioavailability of curcumin by up to 2,000%. That's not a typo. 2,000%. That small addition transforms a mildly beneficial warm drink into something your body can actually use. The second is a small amount of healthy fat, a 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil, or even just whole milk if you're using dairy. Curcumin is fat soluble, meaning it absorbs far more effectively when consumed alongside fat. Without it, you're drinking most of the benefit right down the drain. So, the full recipe, and I'll say this slowly, is warm milk of your choice, 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric, a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a small amount of healthy fat, and optionally a pinch of cinnamon, which we'll talk about more in a moment, because it has its own remarkable role to play for eye health, specifically in men over 50. So now, you know what's in the drink, and why each ingredient matters, but I want to spend some time on something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in these conversations, and that's timing. Because when you consume something is almost as important as what you consume, and for this particular drink, the timing is everything. The window I recommend to my patients is between 30 and 45 minutes before you actually get into bed. Not 2 hours before, not right as you're pulling back the covers. 30 to 45 minutes. Here's why that specific window matters. Your body begins its nighttime repair cycle before you actually fall asleep. The drop in core body temperature, the rise in melatonin, the shift into parasympathetic nervous system dominance, all of that starts happening in that pre-sleep window. When you drink something warm during that period, you're not just adding nutrients, you're working with your body's natural rhythm. The warmth itself signals the nervous system to downregulate. It gently raises your core temperature, which then drops, and that drop is one of the triggers for deeper, more restora. I've had sleep, and deeper sleep means more thorough cellular repair, including in your eyes. There's another reason the timing matters specifically for eye health. The pressure inside your eye, intraocular pressure, actually fluctuates throughout the day and night. It tends to be highest in the early morning hours, which is one reason why people with glaucoma often experience more damage overnight. Anything that supports healthy circulation and reduces systemic inflammation in the hours before sleep can help moderate those pressure fluctuations. And that includes the curcumin and the warmth from your golden milk. Now let's talk about cinnamon, because I mentioned it at the end of part 2, and I don't want to gloss over it. A small pinch of Ceylon cinnamon, and I'll emphasize Ceylon specifically, not the more common cassia variety added to your golden milk, does something very specific that is highly relevant to men over 50. Ceylon cinnamon has been shown in multiple studies to improve insulin sensitivity and help regulate blood sugar levels. Now you might be wondering what blood sugar has to do with your eyes. The answer is almost everything. Chronically elevated blood sugar, even at levels that don't qualify as diabetic, causes what's called glycation. This is a process where sugar molecules attach to proteins in the body and damage them. And the blood vessels in your eyes are among the most vulnerable structures in the entire body to this kind of damage. Diabetic retinopathy, the leading cause of blindness in working-age adults, is essentially glycation damage taken to its extreme. But even in men who are not diabetic, mild blood sugar dysregulation over years and decades quietly degrades the tiny vessels feeding the retina. Ceylon cinnamon, taken consistently, helps buffer that process. It's not a substitute for managing your diet or working with your doctor if you have blood sugar concerns. But as one piece of a nightly routine, it's a genuinely useful add. Ishian. So your full golden milk recipe now looks like this. Warm milk of your choice, half a teaspoon of turmeric, a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, a small amount of healthy fat, and a pinch of Ceylon cinnamon. Drink it 30 to 45 minutes before bed, consistently, not occasionally. And that word consistently brings me to the lifestyle piece, because I'd be doing you a disservice if I let you walk away thinking this drink alone is going to protect your vision without addressing what's happening in the rest of your day. The first lifestyle habit I want to talk about is hydration, and specifically the pattern of hydration, not just the total amount. Most men over 50 are walking around in a state of mild chronic dehydration without realizing it. The thirst mechanism weakens with age. Your body simply becomes less efficient at signaling when it needs water. And the eyes are extremely sensitive to dehydration. The tear film, which protects and nourishes the surface of your eye, depends entirely on adequate hydration. When you're even mildly dehydrated, that film becomes unstable. You get dry eyes, increased sensitivity to light, blurred vision, and accelerated surface cell damage. The pattern I recommend is front-loading your hydration. Drink the majority of your water in the morning and early afternoon. Taper off in the evening, not because hydration matters less, but because drinking large amounts of water late at night disrupts sleep through nighttime waking, and broken sleep is one of the worst things for eye health and overall cellular repair. The second habit is screen discipline in the evening. I know you've heard this before, but I want to explain the mechanism more specifically. Blue light from screens doesn't just affect sleep, it directly suppresses melatonin production in the retina. Remember what we said about melatonin being one of the eye's primary antioxidant defenses at night. When you're on your phone or laptop until 10 minutes before bed, you are actively blocking the very compound your eyes depend on to repair themselves overnight. The golden milk helps stimulate melatonin production. Scrolling through your phone immediately afterward partially undoes that work. The recommendation is simple: use blue light filtering glasses or enable night mode on your devices after sunset, and ideally put screens down entirely at least 30 minutes before bed. Pair that with your golden milk in the same window, and you're creating a genuinely powerful pre-sleep environment for your eyes. I want to talk about sleep for a moment, and I mean really talk about it, not just mention it in passing the way it often gets mentioned in health content. Because when it comes to your eyes specifically, sleep is not a passive state. It is an active, aggressive, biological repair process. And men over 50 are statistically among the most sleep-deprived demographic on the planet, not because they don't want to sleep, but because the architecture of sleep itself changes with age in ways that most people are never told about. Here's what I mean. Sleep happens in cycles. Each cycle moves through lighter stages into deep slow-wave sleep and then into REM sleep. It's during slow-wave sleep, the deepest stage, that your body releases the highest concentrations of growth hormone, conducts the most significant cellular repair, and clears metabolic waste from tissues, including the brain and the eyes. In younger adults, slow-wave sleep makes up a substantial portion of the night. By the time most men reach their mid-50s, the amount of slow-wave sleep they get has often dropped by 40 to 50% compared to their 30s. What this means practically is that even if you're technically in bed for 7 or 8 hours, the quality of repair happening during those hours may be significantly less than you think. And your eyes feel that the retinal cells that were supposed to be cleared of oxidative debris overnight, they didn't get fully cleared. The inflammation that was supposed to be dampened during deep sleep, it wasn't fully dampened. You wake up and your eyes feel tired, gritty, slow to focus. That's not just dryness. That's incomplete overnight recovery. So how does this connect to your golden milk routine? The tryptophan to melatonin pathway we talked about doesn't just help you fall asleep. It specifically helps increase the proportion of restorative slow-wave sleep you get. Studies on melatonin supplementation in older adults consistently show improvements not just in sleep onset but in sleep depth and quality. The warm drink, the consistent bedtime, the reduced screen exposure, together these things nudge your sleep architecture back toward the more restorative pattern your eyes depend on. Now I want to shift gears slightly and talk about something I feel strongly about as a physician, and that is the conversation you should be having with your eye doctor. Because most routine eye exams, the kind where they check your prescription and glance at the back of your eye, are not sufficient for men over 50 who want to be genuinely proactive about their vision. There are specific tests and specific questions that can give you a much clearer picture of where your eye health actually stands. The first thing I encourage every patient over 50 to ask for is an OCT scan, optical coherence tomography. This is a non-invasive imaging test that creates a detailed cross-sectional map of your retina. It can detect the earliest signs of macular degeneration, changes in retinal thickness, and early glaucomatous damage years before those things would show up on a standard visual field test or even be noticeable to you in daily life. Not every general optometrist offers this as a standard part of a routine exam. You may need to ask for it specifically, and in some cases you may need a referral to an ophthalmologist. But it is worth asking. The second thing to ask about is you. Our intraocular pressure trend over time, not just your pressure at a single visit. Pressure fluctuates. A single reading that falls within the normal range can be misleading if your pressure has been quietly creeping upward over several years. Ask your doctor to compare your current reading to readings from previous visits and to discuss whether the trend is concerning. The third conversation to have is about your dry eye status. Dry eye disease is dramatically underdiagnosed in men, partly because men tend to report symptoms less frequently and partly because the condition is historically associated more with women. But men over 50 have significant dry eye rates, and untreated dry eye doesn't just cause discomfort, it causes surface damage to the cornea over time and can accelerate other conditions. Ask specifically whether a tear film assessment has been done, not just a symptom questionnaire. Now let's talk about additional nutrients, because golden milk is genuinely powerful, but it works best as part of a broader nutritional strategy for eye health. There are 3 nutrients I want to highlight specifically because the evidence behind them is strong and because most men over 50 are not getting adequate amounts from diet alone. The first is lutein and zeaxanthin. These are carotenoids, plant pigments that concentrate specifically in the macula, the central part of your retina responsible for sharp, detailed vision. They act as a natural internal filter, absorbing harmful blue light before it can damage retinal cells, and they function as potent antioxidants within the eye tissue itself. The landmark AREDS-2 study, a large, long-term clinical trial funded by the National Eye Institute, found that supplementation with lutein and zeaxanthin significantly reduced the risk of progression to advanced macular degeneration in people at high risk. Food sources include dark leafy greens like kale and spinach and egg yolks, but getting therapeutic amounts from foo D alone is difficult, and a quality supplement providing 10 milligrams of lutein and 2 milligrams of zeaxanthin daily is something I discuss with many of my patients. The second nutrient is omega-3 fatty acids, specifically the long-chain forms DHA and EPA found in fatty fish and fish oil. DHA is actually a structural component of the retina. Your retinal cells are literally built from it. Low DHA levels are associated with accelerated retinal aging, increased dry eye severity, and higher inflammation throughout the eye. If you're not eating fatty fish like salmon, sardines, or mackerel at least twice a week, a high-quality fish oil supplement is worth considering. The third is vitamin D. The connection between vitamin D deficiency and eye disease is an area of growing research. Low vitamin D levels have been associated with increased risk of macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, and dry eye disease. Men over 50 tend to have lower vitamin D levels on average, partly due to reduced sun exposure and partly due to age-related changes in how efficiently the skin synthesizes vitamin D. A simple blood test can tell you where you stand. It's one of the most actionable pieces of information you can get from a routine blood panel. So let's bring everything together, because I want you to leave this video with something concrete. Not a vague sense that you should probably drink more turmeric and sleep better. An actual system, a real nightly routine that you can start tonight, that costs almost nothing, and that compounds in its benefits the longer you stay consistent with it. Here is what the complete routine looks like in practice. In the morning, front load your water. Drink a large glass of water before your coffee, before your phone, before anything else. This sets your hydration foundation for the day and directly supports your tear film and overall ocular circulation. If you can add a handful of spinach or kale to a morning smoothie or eggs for breakfast a few times a week, you're already starting to build your lutein and zeaxanthin reserves. During the day, be deliberate about your screen habits. If you work at a computer, follow what's called the 20-20-20-20 rule every 20 minutes. Look at something 20 feet away for at least 20 seconds. This reduces the chronic ciliary muscle tension that contributes to eye strain and fatigue. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but the cumulative effect of releasing that tension consistently throughout the day is significant. Get outside for at least 20 to 30 minutes in natural daylight. Not because sunshine cures anything, but because natural light exposure during the day is one of the most powerful regulators of your circadian rhythm, which directly controls your melatonin production at night, which, as we've now established, is one of your eye's primary overnight defenses. The morning light exposure and the evening golden milk work together as part of the same system. One primes the rhythm, the other supports the repair. In the evening, about an hour before bed, begin dimming your environment. Lower the lights in your home. Switch your devices to night mode, or put on blue light filtering glasses. This is not optional decoration to the routine. It is the routine. You are giving your nervous system and your retinal melatonin pathways the signal that nighttime is approaching. You are opening the door for repair before you've even taken your first sip. 30 to 45 minutes before bed, make your golden milk. Warm milk of your choice, half a teaspoon of turmeric, a quarter teaspoon of black pepper, a small amount of healthy fat, a pinch of Ceylon cinnamon. Drink it slowly. Sit somewhere quiet. This is not multitasking time. Let this be a genuine wind-down moment, because the parasympathetic shift you get from that quiet, warm drink in a calm environment is itself therapeutic. Your cortisol drops. Your heart rate slows. Your eyes, which have been working hard, all day under artificial light and screen glare and environmental stress, finally get the signal that their shift is ending and the repair crew is coming in. Then sleep consistently. At the same time every night as much as possible. Because circadian consistency is one of the most underrated tools in long-term health, and your eyes are exquisitely sensitive to it. Now I want to address the common mistakes, because I see them constantly, and I want to save you the frustration of doing most of this right and still not getting results. The first mistake is inconsistency. People try golden milk for 3 nights, feel like nothing dramatic has changed, and stop. That is not how nutritional medicine works. Curcumin builds up in your system over time. Melatonin rhythm restoration takes weeks of consistent signaling. The antioxidant protection being built in your retinal cells is a slow, quiet, cumulative process. You will not feel it happening, but it is happening. Give it at least 60 days. Years of genuine consistency before you make any judgment about whether it's working. The second mistake is using the wrong turmeric. Supermarket turmeric that has been sitting in a jar for 2 years has significantly degraded curcumin content. Look for turmeric that is fresh, stored properly, and ideally standardized for curcumin content if you're buying a supplement form. The same applies to cinnamon. Make sure you're buying Ceylon cinnamon specifically, because cassia cinnamon contains high levels of coumarin, which in large amounts can stress the liver. The difference matters. The third mistake is treating this drink as a standalone solution while ignoring everything else. I've said it before, and I'll say it one more time clearly. Your eyes are downstream of your whole body. If you're eating a diet high in processed foods and refined sugar, if you're chronically stressed, if you're not moving your body regularly, if you're smoking, no bedtime drink is going to fully counteract this. E-forces. The golden milk routine works powerfully when it's embedded in a broader lifestyle that supports circulation, reduces inflammation, and prioritizes sleep. It is the finishing touch on a good foundation, not a replacement for one. The fourth mistake is waiting until there's a problem. This is the one that genuinely troubles me as a physician. The most common thing I hear from patients who come to me with significant vision changes is some version of "I noticed it getting worse, but I figured it was just aging and there was nothing I could do." There is always something you can do. The earlier you start doing it, the more vision you protect. The research on macular degeneration, on glaucoma, on diabetic retinopathy. It consistently shows that lifestyle intervention and nutritional support are most effective in the early and middle stages before significant structural damage has occurred. If you're watching this video and your eyes feel fine, that is the best possible time to start this routine. Don't wait for a diagnosis to take your eye health seriously. And finally, talk to your doctor. Share what you're doing. Ask for that OCT scan. Get your vitamin D checked. Have the conversation about your intraocular pressure trend. Be an active participant in your own eye care, not just a passive recipient of a 10-minute annual exam. You deserve more than that, and your vision deserves more than that. I'll leave you with this. Your eyes have been working for you every single day of your life, without a day off, without a complaint, filtering light and color and detail and the faces of the people you love into something your brain can understand and hold on to. They deserve the same care and attention you would give to any other part of your body that matters to you. Tonight, start giving it to them. Make the drink, dim the lights, put the phone down, sleep deeply, and do it again tomorrow. I'm Dr. Andrew Collins. Take care of your eyes, and I'll see you in the next one.